have 12 states which are present here today. Each state presented their position, the kind of challenges that they're facing and the kind of solutions that they've come out with. I'll move on very quickly to Madan Gopal sir, who's here. He is part of the NEP task force and we're looking forward to a few words on the NEP. I would request sir, we are particularly interested in chapter 8, which is to do with the SSSA. We wish we were also included in the draft stage. Unfortunately, we were not. So I give the stage to you now, sir.
Basuraj Oratiji, Chairman Karnataka Legislative Council. Sri Puttanna, an old friend of mine, member of Legislative Council. Sri Arun Shapuraji, Dr. Srinivasanji, Amit Chandraji, and all the distinguished office bearers of various, coming from various states, from Telangana, from Tamil Nadu, from Uttar Pradesh, from Kerala, Dr. T.N. Raju and Dr. Ganesh Bhatt. So at the outset, I compliment Shashi for taking this very, very timely initiative, because the Kpmtcc represents not only teaching and also non-teaching staff, both technical, non-technical, ministerial. So it is a very timely, I can say, symposium where a lot of learning and unlearning can take place. So as far as coming to national education policy, so it is I met a few days ago, about a week ago, one of my senior colleague who was retired almost 15 years ago. He casually asked me, "What are you doing, Madan?" I told that, "Sir, I do so many things, but I presently, government gave me responsibility of implementation task force as a chairman. We have a very distinguished members in the task force. First thing is, we said that you should not implement NEP." I asked him, he's an elderly person, well respected by me. I asked him, "Why, sir? It's a new education policy." I said, "Sir, it is not new education policy, it is a national education policy. Because it is not education as such, we all know, you know better than me. Nothing, education field, nothing can be done abruptly. It is a continuum. In 1986 policy, I was a member of the working group constituted by the then Planning Commission on non-formal education. I was at that time in the Director of Mass Education in Karnataka, where adult and non-formal education we brought together. I had opportunity to, guided by legendary secretaries like Dr. Anil Bodia, some of you may be knowing, Sri Lakshmidhar Misra, and our own Chitra Nayak. Some of you from Maharashtra may be knowing. See, J.P. Nayak originally come from Dharwad belt. Those who are in the education field, you know who is J.P. Nayak. He was education the advisor in government of India when Jawaharlal Nehruji was the Prime Minister of the country. Book by J.P. Nayak, Education History of India, is a must read for everyone who is interested in education sector. Because this explains whole gamut of pre-British and post-British, what type of reforms have taken place, what type of mistakes are committed by various committees, various commissions. So Chitra Nayak was, Dr. Chitra Nayak, madam from Pune, she was a member of Planning Commission. Why I'm saying that, there are a lot of legendary educationists who dedicated their entire life for improving the system from within. So when I say new education policy, it's not a new education policy, it's a continuum of the previous policies. Many of the recommendations of NEP 1986 POA, subsequently Acharya Ramurthy, I also happened to meet Acharya Ramurthy ji, and lot of well-meaning committee they made. Many of the recommendations, if you have patience, please go through the recommendations of Acharya Ramurthy committee of 1986 policy. Now comes 2020. So first thing is that it is not a new, it is a continuum of the earlier policies. It is specifically mentioned in NEP document that this is an unfinished agenda of NEP 1986 and the recommendations of 1992 will be considered and attempted during the planning and implementation of the NEP 2020. Second point, why I'm saying that I have to misapprehensions. I'm saying a lot of apprehensions, and then if you have a from political angle, you can fight. I have no problem because India is a democratic country. You can have your own political leanings. Just as I have my political leanings, everybody have a political leanings. But don't bring your political bias and your jaundiced view to look at a policy which is a forward-looking policy. A point which some critics say that it is just imposed on the states and no consultations are held. I could clarify that this when former Cabinet Secretary T.S.R. Subramaniam, a committee was constituted under his chairmanship in 2015. He gave a report in middle of 2016. Based on the recommendations, a committee was constituted under Dr. Kasturi Rangan's chairmanship. When the committee to say, one sec, yeah. 112 themes were identified and then they were put in a public domain. 2 million comments have come on that, 20 lakh. And 297 tasks were shared with all the state governments. And I can say the response is tremendous. I have seen with 34 years of my experience in working in the government, no policy in independent India has discussed so widely, so detailedly, such a before announcing a policy itself, it is shared with the public domain. But the facts are, as a person who are interested in education sector, so I have to say with utmost honesty that it's the most widely debated, discussed, consulted policy ever seen in independent India. Because I've seen various policies. Land Acquisition Act, when I was amended, I was a part of there in Delhi. We have just called a meeting of conference of the ministers of various states. It was discussed and then it was announced. But whereas this policy, despite pandemic, despite so many issues in the world, now we are in the midst of war, where despite all that, we are discussing about national education policy means it shows everybody's concern because we are all concerned about what goal it sets, how we take it forward. So it's a widely consulted policy. So this is about two. Then coming to the, when we talk of the any policy, we have to talk of institutional memory. Because institutional memory, you have to go back to Sri Baswarath Papatilji. He has mentioned about Kothari Commission, various commissions, and then and also Yashpal Committee report. So many committees or reports given. Many of the recommendations are not implemented yet. Even NEP 1986, I am talking of Karnataka alone. Many of the recommendations of NEP 1986 are not implemented even in Karnataka. So this policy is not something which is compulsory for every state. When 1986 policy was announced, 18 states have opposed it. Sorry, 12 states. 12 states say that we don't want this policy. This is imposed on us. Because this is nothing new. Okay, every state saying that. Subsequently, many states have seen what is good, what is bad. And everyone started thinking that our policy, how to take it forward. Because it's a necessity of as of now, it's a necessity of reforms. Because we are moving so forward all over. So when we come to the institutional memory, when you are remember institutional memory, we should have institutional integrity of the institutions, whether it is government or a private, has to be kept in mind. So coming to the major issue, we are talking of NEP is going to be imposed on everybody. Nobody is mandatory. It's left to the states. Some states, I was told, Telangana, they want to have their own new national education, nothing wrong. Within the framework of national education policy, some states are attempting. Similarly, Tamil Nadu has constituted a committee now. Various states have their own approach to how to proceed further. This is not a mandatory. Ultimately, it's a good for the state, good for the students, good for the parents, good for the society, good for the nation. This point, I think we have to keep it in mind. And I have to say, Horotiji is here because of my experience with him. Sir, tavu kelbeku. Sir, first is that, you all know, any minister is appointed for primary and secondary education. The political circuit data kare poor man or a primary secondary hakidare anta. The no minister is happy to go to primary and secondary education department. Similarly, if any officer is posted in Karnataka, a commissioner of public instruction, I was the longest serving CPI in Karnataka. My colleagues say, "Arey, poor man, he was gone to a CPI." Because CPI means even now, present commissioner of public instruction, not less than 80 to 90 contempt cases. Contempt cases in tribunals, contempt cases in High Court, contempt cases in Supreme Court. Most of the contempt cases are done because of the mistakes by the government, by the way. So the government takes certain decisions. Naturally, teachers, whether in the private sector, whether it is a government aided, unaided, or in the government schools, when they have grievance, obviously they have their own tribunals. We have Karnataka Education Act. Surprisingly, teacher association supported. I'm talking of government sector. Strongly, primary school teacher association, we have high school teacher association, we have HMs association, we have PU lecturers association. All of them unanimously supported that this is a need of the hour. This we could do because of there is a consensus. We could evolve a consensus. Similarly, school development management committees. Govinda Gowdaji, another legendary minister of Karnataka, who was his heart in the right place. He brought certain changes were brought in the certain issues. So school development management committees, including transfers, are done through an executive order. So similarly, issues came regarding what to do about when the North Karnataka, particularly I worked more than 14 years there in Gulbarga, Bidar, Raichur, Bijapur, Bagalkot. These are areas there is always shortage of teachers. So we had a difficulty what to do, how to resolve that. So with lot of consultations, we said that vacant post in Mysore and Bangalore divisions, we shifted to Gulbarga division. Because it's very difficult because, with some of the political parties were not happy, ministers were not happy. Despite that, we could shift some of the vacant posts from Hyderabad, some Bangalore and Mysore areas to now it is called a Kalyana Karnataka area. More educational indicators are very poor in those districts. So I'm saying that some of the reforms are possible through consensus. Similarly, NEP, my advice to minister, the day one I took charge as the chairman is that please have consensus approach, because this is changes or reforms cannot come through confrontation. It can only come through consensus. But regulations, when you are talking about that, it has to be facilitating role. I give an example. Sri Puttanaji was at that time, I think you are chairman of council, sir, or MLC atao. Now, so at that time, Government of India brought an amendment that for UGC scales, and then any recruitment of assistant professor, lecturer in those days, PhD is a must. 2 years before that, Government of Karnataka has announced about around 3,000 posts of lecturers. They are selected, interviews were conducted, list was finalized, list came to the government. At that time, some officers at that time felt that when the Government of India brought an amendment saying that whether it is for ACT scales or a UGC scales, they said PhD is a must. So we cancel entire list. So thanks to Putana, it's a simple thing. We say that any amendment rule, any act, etc., it should have a prospective effect. It can't have a, unless specifically mentioned, it cannot have a retrospective effect. Unless it says, every act says that save as otherwise provided. So when a save as otherwise provided means previous things will continue. So thanks to him, 3,000 lecturer appointment we could give them some time. I'm saying that when you are looking at that, issues are there because so many budget meetings, Roti sir was there, I was also in health. So always I argue with the finance department that don't take whatever funds allocated to health and education particularly, don't take it as an expenditure, take it as investment. Because investment, we know about how the stock market, how you invest in metro, how to invest in big buildings, that's also required. But rate of returns, if you say annual returns of those sectors are not more than 14 to 15%. There are studies, I'm not talking vaguely, there is a studies to prove my point. Investments in education and health sector, returns are 35 to 40%. Because by investing in health sector, you are preventing future patients. By creating infrastructure, creating human resources. We have seen how recent pandemic, how the entire public sector, how the government hospitals stood by the people. I'm not criticizing the private, but I'm saying that similarly, education and health is concerned. In the pay commission I attended, administrative reforms commission I attended. In fact, Karnataka is the first state in India because everybody have a city CCA, city compensatory allowance. So I argued before the chairman of our it is a pay commissioners. I said that rural compensatory allowance should be given because when a teacher is working in a taluka level or a sub-taluka level or a panchayat level, he is deprived of so many things, opportunities for his children, whether it is health, education, whatever thing. So the rural compensatory allowance has to be given. It's the first state in India where a rural compensatory allowance was given. Subsequently, some other states have done. Why I'm saying that educational reforms will come through consensus. It's not that, and officers working particularly, whosoever my younger colleagues, I keep advising them, don't you interpret the rules. I'm not saying violate the rules. I'm not saying that, but interpret the rules in such a way, maximum benefit accrues to the society. Maximum benefit accrues to those who are, whether it is teachers, whether it is the lecturers, so whether it is doctors, whether it is paramedics, etc. Because that angle, that perspective we have to think about. Those from Telangana, Basudan Garu, he knows about S.R. Shankaran. S.R. Shankaran was our legendary IAS officer. Those who know about S.R. Shankaran, we know that. He taught us as our students, so saying that, how to look at the things in a concern with sensitivity. So these are the issues. And coming to the NEP implementation, because I know the private sector, private schools, we tried at that time. The teacher was there. Renewals of recognition every year. So that is we consider as a root cause of, I can say, corruption starts from there. Why every year school has to come for recognition, I don't know. So I wanted to make it as a until further orders. Make it until further orders. Recognize until further anything or any complaints come, government always have the powers. But physically it is impossible for a EO, BO in those days, BO or even that is the level they go for an inspection. Physically 60, 70,000, if you take a private sector, 30, 35,000 schools. Many states similar problem is there. Physically impossible, if you see the inspection report, impossible to do that in a way. It takes at least 3 days. Average 3 days for each school, if you take it, it takes at least 1 year to complete that. But everybody do it in 1 week. We know that. I'm not blaming everybody. There are some good people are there, bad people are there. But why not we have a facilitating legal provision? So we wanted to make it as until further orders. But somehow a lot of lobbies were there. We made it as 5 years. I was told recently, Puttanavare, ಅಸೆಂಬ್ಲಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಇದೊಂದು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಬಂತು ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಕೌನ್ಸಿಲಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾನೂನು ಇರುವುದು ಈಗಪ್ಪ ತಿದ್ದುಪಡಿ ನಾವು ತಂದಿದ್ದೀವಿ 5 ವರ್ಷವರೆಗೆ ದಿ ನೀಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಕಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಿ ರಿನ್ಯೂವಲ್ 5 ವರ್ಷ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಶಶಿಧರ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು ಶಶಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಯು ನೀಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಕಮ್ ಬಟ್ ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ದಿಸ್ ದ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ Similarly, whatever it may be in other states, I don't know, but Karnataka, 5 years again, I was told again they are going every year you have to come for though it is 5 years, but every year you have to come to EO. Why should that school go to EO? Private management schools, I have seen, though I worked in North Karnataka, till I can say Sri Kumar Swami, he was the chief minister ours. Till that time, many districts in North Karnataka didn't have a single government degree college. You may be surprised, because in the education improvements in North Karnataka, I am talking of the both, why called Bombay, Kittur Karnataka, Kalyana Karnataka. So those areas, most of the developments, educational developments, improvement of literacy, technology, technical education, general education, etc., done by the private sector. Many of them have not taken the grant from the government by the very philanthropic motive with a social concern. Maybe some business-oriented institutions will be there everywhere. But by and large, many of these institutions are come with a concern for the society. Concern for, if you see the trust deeds of the bylaws of those institutions, very, very liberal to promote education, to promote equality, to promote some sort of development all around. There is a perspective about salary of the teachers, because I know that, because I keep saying that the government, though advantage of government teachers, I think except a couple of states, most of the states, they have not reduced the salary of a government employee even by 1 rupee. Because government has a budget. Many prestigious institutions, I know, I'm aware, where because you paying the salaries of the teachers, some of institutions, monthly bill of salaries come to 5 to 6 crores. Bigger institutions, I am saying that. And no fee. They don't have some of them may be having a FD, some of them having some properties, but at that time, the distress, nobody want to buy your land, buy your apartments, etc. Even if you encash your FDs, etc., that amount is not sufficient to take care of the salaries of the teachers. And that where the government should have come forward. Surprising, your property tax, your electricity bills, your water bills, nothing is brought down. Some states have done. But this is a concern, because when you are expecting the private school managements, some reciprocity is required, because unless you support them, financial burden. Major task I found that in the private managements, now the suffering is from the financial burdens, because society had to open up. Fee structure, yes, parents have their own difficulty, yes, some of the parents who can afford, but by and large, those who cannot afford, you cannot force them to pay full salary. Yeah. So the private schools' difficulties, both academic, legal, institutional, financial, and administrative, all these issues have to be looked by the government with sensitivity, with concern. And coming to the regulatory mechanism, I'll be there till lunchtime anyhow. So if you give an opportunity, I can share my thoughts. Regulatory mechanisms for ICSE, CBSE is not a mandate of the state governments. It is done by the Government of India, Minister of Education. There are various mandate groups, where whatever task force in Karnataka, in other states, as I know, we are not touching the issue of CBSE and ICSE schools. We are only touching of the state government schools and government aided schools, the government unaided schools. And regulatory mechanism is not just for the private schools, it is applicable to government schools also. Again, it may be not uniform, because some schools located in urban areas, some in the remote areas, the different standards have to be there for as far as infrastructure is concerned. Then quality of teaching learning, then come to the safety and security. There are various issues involved in the regulatory mechanism. We are talking of the SSSA, School Standard Authority. It got various aspects. When in the pandemic situation, post-pandemic situation, priority of any government is how to address problems of sector, problems of education sector, problems of students, because their studies are done. There is a huge learning loss, the class 3, class 5, class 8. So when there are learning loss, how to address the learning loss? When the situation is so tough, no government will try to impose any of the changes, because how to address the learning loss is going to be the priority. Third, regulatory mechanism, not only SSSA, they suggested various suggestions came. It's all governments with concern will be. As far as Karnataka, I can tell that we will definitely go with sensitivity and examine concerns of every, whether it's private, whether it's a government, whether it is a, so many issues are there. Structural reforms and the curriculum reforms, there are two different issues. Structural reform, definitely it is not the time, it may take some time. Curriculum reforms, as you know, curriculum frameworks have to come. Mandate groups are constituted at Delhi, the government of India. The mandate groups are working at that. Each state are asked to have 26 position papers, various themes. It's a very process intense. Nobody imposing from above. Please remove that myth or illusion in your heads. That is not imposed by anybody, neither from government of India nor by the state governments. It's a very intense, consultative, co-intentional, dialogical, participatory process. Only then reforms can be brought. This is my considered view. Sorry, I exceeded time because I was asked to say a few words on NEP. A lot of issues can be discussed because I am fortunate that we have so many from different states. I'll be learning issues from you, so many things that will fine tune our thinking and implement NEP school education part as far as Karnataka is concerned. Thank you so much. Best of luck.